Hey everyone, welcome to this live stream. It's Irene, Lyon, of course. And I want to talk about a few things, just a couple, maybe three, as we are fast approaching the end of registration for Smart Body, Smart Mind. As some of you may know, this course, this program, this curriculum is powerful. It definitely works for many people. We've been doing this for many years, up to 7 years so far. And it is not just one thing. And I want to speak to some of the elements that make it unique, specifically the feldenkraisian learning that is within Smart Body, Smart Mind. I also want to talk about the importance of this work, this nervous system work, not being a quick fix. I think you probably know that by now. And it's hard for me to convey in words the process, the commitment, the time it takes to rewire our nervous systems. And this is the case for most of us, for many of us, to learn regulation. I'm going to say this very slowly. To learn regulation, real regulation of the nervous system as an adult when we've never had it before. So think about this for a moment. In the wild, if you're born without solid regulation and your mother leaves you for dead because maybe you're the runt of the litter, or there's something wrong with you, or she is hurt and she has to leave you, unless one of those fairy tale stories happens where another pack of animals comes and raises you, you will die in the wild. I was raised by 2 veterinarians and I follow animal life, so I understand that this is what occurs, right? There are some instances where a mother dog or cat will neglect her puppies or kittens, but it's so rare. It's so rare. Usually it's because there is something that isn't right with that little one, and she knows intuitively that that one is not going to be strong. Now, we humans are very different because I believe we have a soul, and I believe that sometimes when we're brought into the world and the circumstances aren't the best, we still deserve to live. And we deserve to thrive. And so many of my students were brought up in situations where they didn't get any good, solid attachment, but they still survived. And the reason that happens with humans is we have this higher brain. And I believe we have karma and dharma. It's really more dharma. We have missions here on planet Earth to fulfill. And even if it's one little thing when we're little, something will push us forward to keep going and keep going. This is why so many stories of people surviving incredible abuse and the odds that were literally handed to them, they move through and they succeed. So we know this. But many of those people that push and survive are living with dysregulation because our systems can handle it, but we can only handle it to a certain point. And this is where chronic illness comes in. This is where this classic word syndromes come in. This was popularized by Peter Levine, founder of Somatic Experiencing, who I've had the pleasure of learning alongside and assisting with him with his master classes, I should say. And so we know we can rewire and regulate, but we also know that if we don't, and I'm not just making this up, the research shows this, especially the adverse childhood experiences study that has been replicated over and over again, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And that is when we've had adversity, when we've had deep stress and trauma growing up, not just at the hands of our parents, but maybe the medical system, maybe the school system, maybe we were born with some form of an abnormality that caused so much stress in our system when we were young this can create chronic illness, these syndromes later in life. Anxiety, addiction, Crohn's, IBS, RSD, Raynaud's, migraine headaches, autoimmune, ADD, ADHD, POTS. The list is long. Even certain cancers, dare I say most of them, many of them that aren't environmental in nature, and cardiovascular disease are linked to early childhood stress and dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. I've talked about this at length. I won't go into it again today, except to say we have so many stories of our alumni who were told, you're never going to get rid of this. This is your life sentence. This is a disease. It's in your genetics. Learn how to live with it. And some people will accept that diagnosis and they'll figure out how to live with something like that. And I would say those who come into our world, into SBSM, into Smart Body, Smart Mind, they know deep down there is a birthright waiting to be expressed that hasn't yet been expressed. And inevitably, I'm not saying everyone needs to go through Smart Body, Smart Mind to find that, but that's what our stories show. When a person moves through this robust, unique curriculum, they get the tools that they need to really shift at this deep core, not just cellular level, but soul level, environmental level, relational level, emotional level, sensorial level, movement level, all the levels. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is movement. So I'm dating this, but yesterday I reposted a video of me from 2017 where I was on the beach in LA, and back when I had lots of time, and I put my camera up and I just did a movement sequence that felt really good in the moment. If you watch it, the wind is just blowing and it's sunny, and I had just gotten out of a workshop, and that was in my body to express and to document. Now, often when I post that, people ask, what are you doing? How are you doing that? How do I learn this? And I'm going to start this story by sharing another story. So I've I've gone and spent many, many, many weeks and months in certain retreat settings, somewhere where my husband used to live in Oregon. And there was this beautiful space that sadly has burned down since I used this space years ago due to fires. But it was this beautiful space. It was a yurt, and that's where they held the meditation classes, the yoga classes, the breathing classes, all the mind-body classes that you would get at a place like this. And I loved this space because it was so lit with this natural light. The carpet was firm, not too soft, not too hard. And it just was a beautiful space in the woods. And I would lay there and roll and move for hours. I might fall asleep. It was really a great place to rest and just get my body going. And what was very clear over the years of being in that space, it was called the sanctuary, is people would come in when classes weren't happening, and they walk around a little bit. They might sit and do some stretches, do a few yoga poses. There were some drums in there, so they might bang on the drums a little bit. But inevitably, you could tell they didn't know what to do with their own bodies. And that's not their fault, right? They didn't know how to engage spontaneously with their bodies. If you've ever watched children play with each other, they just know what to do. We don't teach them that. And so often when I share these clips of me moving, and I have many, and I'll repost some of these, people will say, how do I learn that? Do you teach this? And the answer is, yes, I teach it, but I don't teach you how to do that. I teach you how to be in your body, how to feel your body in relationship to the environment. But even before that, you have to learn to be regulated in your body and sense and feel the nuances of it. And what does your body want on that day? Does it want to stand up as I wanted to on that beach back in LA in 2017 and open and close and be more flowy because I was talking with the wind and the ocean? Or does it want to be a bit more punchy, a bit more, a little more jagged and rigid? Or does it just want to lay on the ground like a puddle and just really gently roll? And these are all things that get learned when you start to connect with your system at a core, visceral, interoceptive level. You will find these movements in you because they are in us genetically, cellularly. They're in utero movements, they're infant movements, crawling, rolling, pushing up, curling. People often ask, Irene, do you teach reflex work? And I don't. I know people study this stuff and work with it, but I have found that when we get into that core, spinal cord, peripheral nervous system level, and we're not in a state of stress and shock and fight and flight and freeze, we start to move in the way that our bodies are meant to move. We crave movement, and we crave the kind of movement we need pending what we need that day or that week or month or year. So yes, I teach it, but I'm not going to stand and guide you to lift your arms up and breathe in and out and twist and bend. Anybody that's come to an actual live feldenkrais session with me, or I should say workshop, series of workshops, classes over days, I will guide just as I guide in the neurosensory exercises that are feldenkraisian based in SBSM and Smart Body, Smart Mind. I will guide you, but I also make sure there's enough time for you to explore and put yourself to the test. And I can tell you that it is sometimes both joyous and painful to watch how scared people are to express their bodies. I could cry just thinking about it right now. It's so telling how disconnected we are from our movement, and that is what we have to move us through life, to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves. And so when I think back to those times when I was in that sanctuary and really moving my body and seeing how disconnected people were, even though they were at this beautiful retreat center in the woods, soaking in hot springs, and yet, I even would see this in the hot springs. People would sit in these beautiful hot springs, lithium enriched, these things, these springs were, and people would be they would be tight. You wouldn't hear a sigh. You wouldn't see yawns or stretches or movements. People would just sit there frozen, afraid to move. And that just shows so much. So to go back to the question that was asked yesterday under this movement video of mine, how do I learn this? What is this? Where do you teach this? I teach that in everything that I do. Of course, there's different levels. The way to get into this is to start working with your nervous system, and that is exactly what Smart Body, Smart Mind teaches. And in SBSM, there are feldenkraisian movement lessons that lead you to that alongside the somatic experiencing work, the stress organ work, the support, the theory. And by the end of the program, when we're in the final modules, namely the 9th and 10th module, which can take some people years to get to, by the way, and that's okay, that is where we're blending in the movements of the hands, just this ability to be dexterous as opposed to like this. How many of us as babies were held by parents that were stiff and rigid and scared and unsure, right? Sure that our parents might have loved us, but the transmission of fear, even if unconscious, was there. And so when you watch that video of me, my hands, my fingers, right to the tips of these last final knuckles are connected. And so we get into that depth of learning in SBSM. We work with the hands, the joints, the spine, the eyes, the head, the pelvis, the hips, all of it. So I wish there was a way that I could just transmit all of that in one flash, like a flash drive to you in a zip file, but I can't. It requires this developmental sequential learning at this nervous system, somatic, felt sense level in relationship to the environment. And you can't fast track that. You can't make it quick. Even when I was an athlete in my 20s, I had no sensitivity to that level of dexterity in my body. I was rigid, I was strong, I was an athlete, I could do so much, but I didn't have that nuance, I didn't have that regulation. And it can be learned because it's built in us to be learned, but we got to take the layers off and get the monkeys off of our back and get the survival stresses out of us. And then we start to restore and regenerate at that deep motor neuron sensory level. You know, we love watching movements of people doing ballet and skiing and even running and playing tennis and heck, even boxing. You know, you watch it and you're just mesmerized, right? And those are all wonderful athletic pursuits, but you don't have to be an athlete to be in your body at that level. So much healing happens when we shift this mentality that, oh, that's for an athlete and I'm a person who likes to just sit and read, or I'm a person who needs to do this. We're meant to do all of it. We're meant to all be intellectual, creative, athletic, introverted, extroverted, in relationship, in monk mode, all of it. It's all in our rubric. It's all in our DNA. And that is why I loathe it when people label themselves and say, I am like this, therefore I can't do that. Trust me when I say I've worked with enough people over the last 25 years to know that when we start to heal our nervous system, we surprise the shit out of ourselves at what is possible. So I wanted to just pop in and share a little bit about that video, but also a little bit more about Smart Body, Smart Mind and how unique it is. We also work with the vagus nerve. We do touch. We learn the theory. We bring the polyvagal in. All of that occurs in SBSM. Is it everything? Of course not. But it's sure a lot of stuff. And if you're kind of wondering if you should, if it's really the real deal, like go and watch some of our alumni panels that have happened over the past week and a half. There was a general one on February 9th, there was a men's panel on February 15th, and there was a parenting panel on February 16th. If you can watch all of them between now and Thursday when registration closes and you're still not sure, watch those. And if at the end there's still a hesitation, that's fine. Then perhaps the system isn't quite ready. But if you watch those and if you're just like enthralled, which some people said, I didn't think I'd be able to watch this whole thing because they're longer, they're about an hour and a half each, but they just kept watching and watching because it's just real stories of real people who have been doing this work, many for multiple years. And what I am most proud of is the parenting panel. Because what that shows, when you watch that parenting panel, it shows what occurs when one person shifts their relationship with themselves and their regulation. It ripples out into the universe through their children, and then what's going to happen to those children? They're going to have children, or not. They don't have to have children, but everything they do, those kids moving forward, is going to be positive in the world. It's going to be healing based. It's going to be curiosity based. They are going to be embodied, and they won't have to spend decades figuring out why they are so unwell and struggling so much. So there is a bit of a responsibility right now with our current timeline of people. Doesn't mean generations, like if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We have people who are in their 80s in SBSM and 20s. Doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum of age. We need everyone, in my opinion, right now to be doing this work so that not only do we leave this world really solid and good, it's so that the next generations don't have to spend their life figuring out this healing stuff. We know how to heal. The body knows how to heal, but we've like jumped off the track. It's like so far out there because of conditioning, industrialization, and domestication of plants and animals, and toxins in the environment, and the systems that are so rigid and structured, right? Like, we still need structure, but we need to bring back this natural organic healing process. It's very shamanic, this work, and it's scientific. Some people will say that the best scientific thinkers were both scientific and religious. And I use that word religion not based on dogma or fundamental religion, but like that connection to a deeper source, that connection to something that is bigger than us, but we still need to work with our biology. Watch the parenting panel. It's just so good. And watch the other ones. And as I mentioned at the beginning, our registration for SBSM is open now through Thursday, the 22nd of 2024. All the information that you need to know is on the Smart Body, Smart Mind registration and info page. We often get questions that are common. There's 19 questions that are answered on that page, all the frequently asked questions. If you read through that and you still have questions, send us an email to support, my support team. It's just support@irenelyon.com. They'll help you. And we're going to start with orientation on Friday. So now's the time to jump in. There's pre-programmed material. You can orient to all the things that go on, get your calendar set for the live calls, the training calls, all those things. I hope this video has made some sense, or maybe a lot of sense. Even the education and how I teach this has to be layered. Again, like I said, I wish I could transmit this right through and just have you understand it, but we're all at different levels. We're all at different levels of regulation. But the key piece here is that we're meant to be regulated. We're meant to be living in full regulation. And it is so hard to convey how much has messed that up. And when I think of the people on our panel, they have shifted significantly. And they've shifted significantly because they've treated it as a lifelong event. This learning, healing, living thing that is being a human here on planet Earth. So thank you, everyone. I'm sure there were some comments and questions. I'm not going to look at them right now. I just wanted to pop this out to you on this Tuesday. Take good care.